Electrocast.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Wesley demands.
Now, this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you.
I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or Whatever Movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up? Welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host, Iris, and I'm here with my older brother,
Wesley.
We are talking a movie from 2024, the fifth installment in the franchise, Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire.
And the 40th anniversary of the OG Ghostbusters 1984. What is with that?
How's that make you feel, Wes?
Considering that Jason Reitman, he's the main guy. He's not even directing Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And his dad, the director Ivan Reitman, original creator and director of Ghostbusters, has passed away this year. Hence the dedication for Ivan.
Dedicated to and produced by, posthumously, Ivan Reitman?
He's heard about this idea. I'm not sure how involved he was. He has been gone for a little while.
So let's talk about this Gil Kenan. How does he take over for the Reitman heir?
Well, Jason Reitman is still a part of it. He's executive producing, and he co-wrote it with Gil Kenan, who wrote not only Ghostbusters Afterlife, but City of Ember, and thus who has a relationship with Bill Murray. Was able to bring him back on board, because it's never a sure thing. You produce a Ghostbusters movie, never a sure thing you're going to get Bill Murray in. In fact, he was only really in 2 scenes of this movie, albeit kind of 2 big important scenes. But, so he co-wrote Afterlife and has his time now in the director's chair. And to be perfectly honest, Jason Reitman probably would have been in the director's chair, but he was mourning the loss of his dad. The cast and some of the crews did say that he was on set for a lot of production, but they could see the toll that the passing of his dad had on him, and it was the right move to hand off official directorial duties.
Yeah, I could see how basically being in his dad's head and living in his dad's world would make his death extra in his face.
Now, Harold Ramis died 10 years ago, and so maybe 10 years from now, the Ghostbusters sequel will have an Ivan Reitman ghost in it. Too soon? Too much?
Well, I mean, it's inevitable. And yeah, he died 2014.
It'll be the meta Ghostbusters, like Scream. A lot of Scream 3 was about the making of Stab or whatever it was, about the making of the movie, about the events of Scream. That's how we'll get an Ivan Reitman ghost.
Oh, gotcha.
And in a weird way, that was trading on Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which was a Nightmare on Elm Street sequel about the production of a movie about the exploits of Freddy Krueger in the film that they made about him.
Nightmare on Elm Street, the original being what year?
84 also, I want to say, like Ghostbusters.
Yeah, they are of the same horror... Wait, is this a horror movie?
An essential characteristic of Ghostbusters is its humor. It's a Halloween movie because Halloween is about fun, but I don't think Ghostbusters was ever in the horror section.
Yeah. But also not a family movie. When I told you that I was going to show my daughters the original Ghostbusters, you were horrified.
It's got some sketchy elements. We watched part of Ghostbusters, about an hour of it, before seeing Frozen Empire, and even I was surprised by how not a kid's movie that was intended to be. I mean, these are mostly Saturday Night Live alums, and it was an adult movie, to be sure.
We definitely fast-forwarded through the library ghost, who makes a second appearance and cameo in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Yes, pretty much an identical cameo, much like Slimer's nearly identical cameo. The same roar and the same charge and all that stuff.
That roar seared into my memory. It's right up there with the sound effects attributed to the Ectomobile.
Yeah, which was really, really common in Britain. That's a British siren, which I think we discussed in Afterlife. To American ears, really only for Ghostbusters, or maybe an American Werewolf in London or something that took place in the UK when I was a kid. Otherwise, that's an exclusive Ectomobile sound.
Wow, I kind of forgot that we covered Afterlife. Is that weird?
I'm afraid it's a little bit forgettable. I'm afraid Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, a little bit forgettable. I defended Ghostbusters Afterlife because to try to go back in and match the original films, it had to be a completely different tone. And it kind of was, except that they had Gozer the Gozerian. And except that, now we are back in New York and everybody's on board in the firehouse. And Janine is there and Walter Peck is there and Slimer's there and everybody's there.
So Afterlife took this interesting departure, and I think because of its success, and perhaps despite its mixed reviews, it has established a new generation, not only of fans, but of characters. And the Spengler family, they moved from wherever it was, where they found the thing that the architect had built, and then they moved to New York?
Yeah, they left Egon on the farm. Presumably he went to the other side, where Melody was trying to get, right?
Yeah, Melody was the love interest of Trevor, of Finn Wolfhard. Are they together now, or are they just buddies?
No, that is the other girl, the girl with the braids, who was his proposed love interest. However, we squashed that right away with the hug, the very clear, no bothering to pursue any of that nonsense hug. No, Melody was the potential love interest of Phoebe, the ghost who died in the fire before her face melted.
So I agree, but they played that very subtly. The budding romance between Phoebe and Melody. And yet I definitely was surprised that Phoebe didn't try and kiss her when she became a ghost.
Well, of course. Why else would you do the particle disintegration or whatever? Why would she become a ghost if that wasn't the case?
Scientific experiment?
Of what? Of patty cake? What were they going to do? They did all the things except share boba or something.
Is that what the kids do these days?
Well, why do they have to be on the same spectral plane, if not to bone?
Phoebe is the consummate scientist and just wanted to experience the metaphysical state of being a ghost.
Yes, but emotion does not enter into science. Science is empirical. That was the worst emotional decision that she could have possibly made. She did a dumb thing. It was the biggest lapse of reason and probably the second biggest flaw of her character for the entire movie.
Well, love makes you do crazy things.
Do you know how most importantly I could tell that Phoebe was definitely not a scientist?
How?
The toddler way she held her pencil when she was writing in that thing. People need to learn how to hold pencils correctly. When they do that weird thing where they hold the pencil with their whole fist, that's not an educated person.
Some people's fine motor skills develop later than others.
I'm saying at that point, it should be corrected. Like orthodontia, you can't help it. If your teeth are bad, but you can correct it.
Did you just say orthodontry?
Orthodontics. I was so annoyed.
At her teeth?
At the pencil.
Oh. Well, I'm all defensive, as you could tell, because we got Bean, the little writing block that you put on the pencil that helps you develop your alligator fingers, as they call them in kindergarten or technical kindergarten.
Right.
And, she's not quite there yet, so back off.
Do you know why? Because Bean is a toddler, and that's how toddlers write. McKenna Grace, I think she's like 20.
Is she? She's supposed to be 15.
Yeah, she is, but she's definitely older than that.
Wow, you're right. 2006. So she's 18.
18. Okay, fair enough.
I really did think that she was a little kid, though. McKenna Grace, 18. Finn Wolfhard. Boy, he's not a kid anymore.
Nope, but he said in this one that he was 18 now. So he had just reached adulthood. In real life, he's what, 22?
He's 2002. So, yeah.
It works. It's fine. It's whatever. But kind of takes a back seat because they don't let him drive. Get it? Back seat. Finn Wolfhard for being one of them. Well, no, you got Paul Rudd. And Paul Rudd, even as evidenced on the posters, is definitely the front and center star of Ghostbusters.
Top billing.
Maybe not Afterlife, but certainly Frozen Kingdom. Yeah, top billing. But I thought Finn Wolfhard was the kid. And I thought that Paul Rudd was going to be a Patton Oswalt kind of in the background. Kumail Nanjiani not far enough in the background. Supporting character, really. But he has come to prominence.
Paul Rudd.
Yes. And boy, am I relieved. Because he was, a history teacher in Afterlife?
Yep, and now he wants to be Phoebe's dad. Which I was like, you can just get with the Spengler and then be Phoebe's stepdad. He wanted the emotional, relational acceptance of being a dad figure.
Mm-hmm.
That was his journey? That was his goal?
Sure. And to be a Ghostbuster.
Because bustin' makes me feel good?
Honestly?
Come on, that was hard. That was a hard scene. And not many people could pull it off like Paul Rudd pulled it off.
So I agree. Did he pull it off, though? Did he?
Yeah.
Because that line might as well have been a stop down. Let's cater to the, you can't see, I'm doing air quotes, comedian and the comedic lines that Kumail Nanjiani tried and failed multiple times to execute.
Wow.
That poor dude, not at all funny. Immediate Lovebirds vibes.
I was about to say, you just got all this Lovebirds baggage.
You're telling me that
projecting
dude,
it on to Kumail Nanjiani in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, where he had also very hard lines.
he was funny, is what you're saying?
I thought that when they were in the back room, the bronze back room vault thing, that he was funny. There was a line or two that were particularly funny. I thought when he was bending the flame and then he got it, he was endearingly funny. Kumail Nanjiani has some good comedic timing.
When he was the brass fire bastard, you thought he was funny?
I mean, that was just silly. But come on, he was put in like almost impossible. He like acted his way out of impossible lines and an impossibly geeky character.
I'm going to say that they were like, we want you in this movie for whatever reason, like must hire or something. And he was like, okay, but I want to be wacky, guys, and funny. And they were like, oh, okay.
You know what? Cell is right. Shout out to the chill. What is up your butt? Ghostbusters Frozen Empire is not intended to be a serious movie. It's not intended to be a seriously acted movie. Kumail Nanjiani. Yes?
Maybe it's just me against the Asians. That was it necessary to bring back podcast? Like, I don't want to talk bad about, we have to be like supporters of podcasts in general, but he was a completely, wholly unnecessary addition to this already stacked cast.
How would they get the secret recording of the wax cylinder that was later destroyed, if not for podcasts, and his life-saving microphone?
When he was doing the space camp thing with his relative or whoever was on the phone, he also played the space camp sounds on an 80s tape recorder. Why did he have a tape recorder?
Because that's cool and retro. That's what kids use these days.
Did you also note for some reason that when they did the inhabitor ghost or the possessor ghost that would go into inanimate objects, that room that they set up, the test room, was like distinctly 80s? Like the furniture and the lamp and the table. I think they had a rotary phone in there. That was a little bit weird, right?
Weird. It was like the ghost would feel most comfortable in an 80s styled room.
Not really sure.
They explained it away saying they want to do these scientific experiments on the ghosts, but that was where I started to see the seams. Like, obviously, when you introduce all of these ghosts, they're going to come back, right? Except they don't, really. That really badass, scary-looking ghost that was, like, coming in and out of the dark, I really expected it to do badass, scary ghost stuff, and it kind of didn't.
Yeah, I thought that was the frozen goat baron. Didn't you think so?
You thought that was the frozen emperor?
Yeah.
Why did the emperor need the goat horns? Like, he seemed like he was pretty happy to put those back on. And then I thought they were going to do some badass goat stuff.
Look, he was no Stave Puft Marshmallow Man or anything. He was not that tall. He fit inside the firehouse. His feet or whatever, his cloak came down so that he was standing on the ground and we had that kind of crunching ice effect, right? So he was floating in order to be 9 or 10 feet tall or whatever. I think it was like Napoleon's hat. I think that was his complex, like he needed it to feel powerful, like Loki or his sister. You have no idea what I'm talking about. But the horns are necessary so that people see you for the imposing figure that you really want to be. It's like Sauron with his helmet on, because the little ice mouth with the little teeth, he wasn't terribly imposing or scary without the horns.
He didn't really have a very distinct face.
No, but we saw a close up of his mouth, and I really liked the first trailer. Paul Rudd sees him and he emerges, and we talked about what a sucker I am in movies like The Fog for indistinct, glowy-eyed bad characters.
Yeah.
And Paul Rudd is like, ho, when he sees him in the trailer, and that made me happy. Like, I'm a sucker for this kind of enemy, but practically speaking, all he did was freeze stuff. And I don't know what this is like the Day After Tomorrow level ice, the ice that can chase you through the halls and stuff. Like, what's freezing? My understanding is you need water content, but when he freezes doors and walls and stuff, is it freezing the water in the wood of the door? What's freezing?
That's a good question, because otherwise it just gets cold. Yeah, there's giant water spikes coming out of the concrete and then the sand for some reason.
I mean, the sand and the beach I can understand. And the spikes I can understand because they look cool. And if you were going to have a Superman Fortress of Solitude looking ice fortress, then it would be all spikes and stalactites or stalagmites of, what are we calling those? Icicles or whatever emerging from underneath the ground. Whatever, it's fine.
I would have liked more Frozen Empire. I would have liked more New York is frozen in August. Whoa, this is crazy ice skating on the streets stuff.
It didn't shut down the whole city. In fact, there was a point, I think it was when the Hell's Kitchen sewer dragon was loose again. It soared over a lady who was like getting coffee at a bodega or something. The whole city shut down, and all of a sudden it turns to winter and it's actively snowing outside, and there's like all this craziness happening, and the New Yorkers are like rolling with it. They're like, well, I still got to get my bagel in the morning or whatever.
Life is hard, but finding a really great podcast makes the days go by so much easier. Hi, my name is Blue Telusma. I'm a writer, an emotional intelligence coach, and the host of Humanize with Blue Telusma, a podcast where we believe that when you humanize everyone in the room, a great conversation is almost guaranteed. Join us every week here on Electricast as me and my guest co-hosts unpack big topics and interview even bigger personalities with a sense of humor and a dash of mischief. If you're looking for a new best friend in your head, we've got you covered. Electricast.
They just had to have enough destruction early on in the movie in order to reintroduce the mayor.
Yeah. Walter Peck, who remains unchanged except for a few more gray hairs in his beard. All that stuff that happened to him in New York. And he got marshmallowed big time. And still he's not a believer. Still he thinks they're hacks or causing like destructions and explosions and things.
And on the other side of that, would one little potential PR misstep really cause him to change his tune publicly? Probably not.
You know, speaking of PR, Stay Puft was still like a big brand. It's still recognized. It's still in business. It's the reason we all have all those stupid Ewok-style Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, I'm again using air quotes, cute figures that are burning their faces off and all that stuff.
And like grinding their arms in pencil sharpeners.
Right. It was on the truck at the end, the mid-credit scene, the Stay. You'd think that after the events of 1984, that company would have taken a PR hit, but nope. Stay Puft is still a thing, big and all over the place in Ghostbusters, New York. Here's the problem with Ghostbusters Frozen Kingdom.
Empire.
Whatever. I'm in it. I have to see it when they release a sequel to a movie that was instrumental in my childhood. Ghostbusters definitely was that. I gotta see it. But when I'm a little bit bored or when I'm rolling my eyes or trying to disassociate from the ineffective Kumail Nanjiani humor, I find myself thinking about the semantics, the logistics, the logical implausibility of some of these things. And it kind of bugged me. Like I was doing that thing where I was tearing it down in my mind the whole time. The ghosts in particular, because they insisted on bringing back Slimer. We know that Slimer and the Hell's Kitchen sewer dragon and the Librarian and stuff, all of these were ghosts in the same plane.
Who was the last one?
The Librarian.
Oh, Librarian.
Yeah, that one. Then we had Egon. And now we have this annoying Melody character. And those are all ghosts, right? But Melody had emotions and all her thoughts and like residual filial things where she wanted to go, you know, the whole motivation in sending Phoebe to the snow gods was to go to the other place to see her parents. What makes a Slimer ghost? What makes a sewer ghost? Whereas the people can be normal ghosts.
I did think after she betrays Phoebe that all of Melody's emotion was just manipulation. But then after the Emperor is vanquished, Melody still has yet more emotions. And then she somehow, I don't really know, goes to the next plane. Was it just by choice?
I thought that she was going to be, I thought that Kumail Nanjiani had some like mysticism about him or whatever, but that she was going to be the fire master.
Melody? Oh, because she was burning?
Yes! They could have reverse particle dispossessed her or whatever, and she could have had material form. McKenna Grace didn't need to be a ghost. They could have made her tangible enough so that they could exploit her fireness, and she could have been the firebender.
This is like a Stand By Me sitting around the campfire line of questions. Like, what is Goofy? But what does make a Slimer ghost? Do monsters have ghosts?
Exactly.
And then they become Slimer ghosts?
Are the Ghostbusters not morally obligated to bust all ghosts? Can you be like, oh, Slimer's not bad or whatever, or Egon's not bad? Is it just because, like, if the ghosts are also vandals, you have to bust them? Do they just have to like slime stuff and wreck stuff like the card catalogs or whatever before you bust them? Is it if they're a nuisance?
Right, exactly. So, and if Melody is just a ghost trying to get along on her merry way, are the Ghostbusters actually doing a disservice to all the ghosts that they hold in the containment unit? Should they be somehow helping usher them into the next plane? Would
Exactly.
that be a more humane, a more ghost-mane approach to busting?
If Melody is all emo, is it inhumane to put her in the containment unit with the other ghosts?
I mean, according to Melody's journey, where she happily goes into entropy, dematerializes, no, that would be inhumane to hold her in some containment unit for eternity.
So they explained the dispossession concept, and they explained the inner mechanics of the containment unit. So why not explain or explore the concept of ghost justice? Which ghosts deserve to be busted and which can remain free? You know what I love that they didn't bother to explain after all this time? We were watching the first one, and Venkman goes into Dana Barrett's, aka Sigourney Weaver's, apartment, and he's doing the little squeeze bulb with the copper tube, and she's like, "What is that thing you're doing?" And he says, "It's one of our little toys." Science thing or whatever. And then somebody, I can't remember who it was, had it in this movie, and they still haven't explained what that little squeeze bulb thing does.
I didn't notice that. Who was it? Come on.
So weird. It might have been Finn Wolfhard, as a matter of fact.
And all these years, I just thought that Venkman, I mean, how much of Venkman was and still is a shyster?
He definitely
he doesn't
is.
care about the science.
Not really. When he is trying to get with the student, where he's conducting the paranormal study, the ESP, you know, the negative effects of ESP or whatever, he's just trying to bone the student. Yeah, and he like shocks the dude, even when the dude gets the cards right. And then he says, after the incident with Alice, he says, "Alice, are you menstruating right now?" And the guy's like, "What does that have to do with it?" And Kelly Ray very loudly is like, "Yes, what does that have to do with it?" He's definitely an 80s jerk style character for sure. Venkman, not exactly morally redeemable.
But it's because he also doesn't have the race dance grandfatherliness about him. And I was impressed with Dan Aykroyd in this film. There were some moments in his little shop where I was like, where I remembered, or maybe I discovered for the first time, Dan Aykroyd can act.
I mean, look, he's got a vested interest in Ghostbusters. Bill Murray is just in it, I don't know, for the legacy or whatever. I'm not really sure. Nobody knows why Bill Murray does what he does. But Dan Aykroyd co-created the Ghostbusters. He is in it way more than the other guys. And he shows up and does his thing.
How does Patton Oswalt come into play?
He was just an expositor of information. And, of course, Patton Oswalt is a legendary nerd. He's all up on Star Wars trivia and stuff, and all a fan of the great franchises of old, and now he's a part of one.
Yeah, you think he'll be coming back?
It depends, man. There's a lot of people, unnecessary people. This new guy, the new Q or whatever, Pinfield, that asshole, he was an asshole. I expected him to be what's his name? Varna? What's the bad guy in Stranger Things right now? Vecna. I expected him to be a Vecna type, and he just wasn't. He was there for no reason. They really needed to consolidate some of these characters.
He's kind of a dreamy English dude.
Dreamy?
I mean, not in like a Timmy Shammy way, like in a daydreamy way.
Okay.
He kind of came out of nowhere. All right, so I was excited to see Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. You and I both saw it opening weekend, a fairly successful opening weekend. The franchise itself reaches $1 billion in box office. It's a cumulative number, which makes it all the more appropriate that this should be even more of an homage to the original Ghostbusters. Sony's got its franchise. We're going to see more. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, really fun.
What?
Come on, Wes. It was fun. It's a Friday night popcorn, or Saturday in your case, popcorn movie, and yet halfway through, I turned to Brian and referenced Afterlife, and he was like, "Yeah, I didn't see it." I was like, "What?"
Oh my god! Oh my god! It's half the cast has no basis.
How is this? I'm like, we are here at opening weekend. You didn't choose to tell me at some point that you hadn't seen the. Anyway,
that's probably the hardest I've ever laughed on or whatever movies. Oh my god! We didn't bother to watch Ghostbusters. Kelly and I had seen it so much, but we didn't revisit Afterlife. I was excited, but my enthusiasm was tempered. I was really worried, and they did a very Phantom Menace
Afterlife
thing. I gave it a decent review because it went in a different direction, and I was excited about the reinvigoration of the Ghostbusters franchise. But this one, they did the thing where they were explaining nonstop. It not only was there not really a frozen empire to go to, it took us a long time to get to the freezing part of New York. Like really late.
That's true.
And Giles or whatever, the nerdy guy, was talking about how it's not a ghost, it's a god. And I was like, oh, there's a distinction. So there's tiers. There's Melody and Egon level ghosts, and then there's Slimer and Hell's Kitchen sewer ghost level ghosts, dragon ghosts. And then there's gods now. And the gods, the regular proton packs don't hurt them at all. So they needed brass ones. And I was sitting there thinking, I was like, wait, is the melting point different than iron? Because they were making molten brass on the stovetop in a cast iron pan.
She had a burner. Come on.
What?
That was scientific grade.
Oh, man.
Handheld Bunsen burner.
I wanted more Sigourney Weaver. She was in a post-credit scene or a mid-credit scene in Afterlife. I wanted Rick Moranis. As long as we're bringing back everybody. I wanted to see the Louis Janine thing happening, like the romance or whatever. I think that happened in the second movie. I wanted to see that rekindled. And they didn't show up because they knew better. And so they had to put people like Kumail Nanjiani, who just stopped everything down. The cringe he was basically the Louis Tully type character. And then remember Ray, when I think it was Phoebe who picked up the thing, and he's like, that's a human finger, right? She put it down.
Right.
Remember when Golaka got sucked into the trap and his finger snapped off and Ray didn't pick up the finger?
Oh, at the very end?
Yes. He got sucked in through the grate or whatever, and one or two of his fingers snapped off, and I was like, Ray's got a thing where he collects fingers. No. Must have been cut out or something.
Wait, why did you call him Golaka?
That was his name, Golaka, the frozen goat baron.
Oh, man.
He had historical precedence. Remember how nerdy they got with Gozer the Gozerian and Ivo Shandor, the architect of the building, and the foundation of the building being pure selenium, and it was basically a conduit? All that stuff. I think if there's justice in the world, in Ghostbusters 1, 2, 3, 4, in Ghostbusters 5, the new fire pole in the thing, since they had to sacrifice it, should be made out of purest selenium as a tribute from New York City for saving them from Stay Puft and then the Frozen Empire ghost. Because that could be a conduit directly to the firehouse. If it's going to be somewhere, that's where all supernatural activity resides, around the Ghostbusters, so they can bust them more effectively and easily.
She definitely hacksaws that fire pole, and yet at the end, it's totally intact.
I saw the potential. I saw what they were trying to do. It was fine, but I feel like I'm being too easy on these movies. And this one kind of annoyed me for as fun as it was. Right out of the gate, I liked the throwback 1904 firehouse, the guys leaving the firehouse and then going to find all the frozen things and the ball of ice terror or whatever. All that was good. I liked the initial chase.
The devil's testicle.
Yeah. And then the Ecto one in pursuit of the sewer ghost or whatever. It was awesome because they actually addressed my question in the first one. Like, how safe is it that Phoebe's in that gunner seat, right? That's outside the vehicle. That's really dangerous. And then she almost got clipped in that thing. And I was like, oh, see, they finally addressed it. They're really going to take care to rein in some of the crazier, unexplained aspects of the Ghostbusters franchise at large. And they're going to explain all the stuff, and give us the lore behind this new villain so that it doesn't feel random. And then it just kind of felt random and too explainy to me. I'll definitely be there for Ghostbusters 5, but I'm not going to be as excited about it, man.
6.
Whatever. I'm going to go with it. Oh, are we counting the real Ghostbusters, the cartoon?
This is the 5th movie.
Yeah, what? There's Ghostbusters 1 and 2. There was never a 3. 3 wasn't until Afterlife. This is 4. There will be a 5.
Paul Feig, all-female Ghostbusters?
Doesn't count. Not even addressed in this universe.
Wow.
Because all of the original Ghostbusters played different characters. Sorry, that's a Ghostbusters extended universe tangential film. It doesn't factor into this story. Whatever. I'm giving it an official Ghostbusters Frozen Empire gets an official meh rating.
Making enemies left and right. Here at Or Whatever Movies, you heard it from Wes. He gives a below-the-line review rating to Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. It has its problems, but it's certainly not a below-the-line. I give Ghostbusters Frozen Empire good, and that's our discussion on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Check out our discussion, which I had forgotten about, of Ghostbusters Afterlife at orwhatevermovies.com or wherever you get podcasts, plus 300 others. If you enjoyed this review, despite Wesley, give us a 5-star review, subscribe, and hit us up, 818-835-0473 or whatevermovies@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Hey there, I'm DC. I host the Rock Podcast, Back to the Arena, The Interviews. It's about a 30-minute podcast where I talk one-on-one with a band who has released new music. You can find us on all the best podcast sites like Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, and more. If you're a rock fan like me, subscribe today to Back to the Arena, The Interviews.
Electricast.
Introducing the Deep Leadership Podcast. Leadership is a people business. That's the philosophy of your podcast host, John Rennie. As a former submarine officer who spent 22 years leading businesses in corporate America before starting his own manufacturing business, he knows that leadership matters. Deep Leadership is real-world, actionable leadership advice from John and his expert guests. Become a leader worth following. Subscribe today.
Electricast.